So we're working back on our master server, and it's on this server that we're going to generate the key pair. But before we do this, we're going to run then our apt get install -y and then have get. So this is going to allow us to create our entropy data. I'm just going to use Ctrl and L to clear the screen. With this done, I'm already in the bind directory. Again, we can double check this with pwd, but I'm now going to run then the command dns-sec keygen, and then the algorithm that we're going to use is the MD5, and we're going to use our bit size of 128 bits, and then the type of key that we're generating is going to be a host key, because this is going to be used in communication between the master server and the slave server. And we actually, when we name the key, we're recommended to include then the servers that are going to be involved, so master and slave, and of course they're in .example.com. And when we name it here, I don't have to put the dot at the end, but we'll see later when we look at the public key that's been generated, it will use a dot at the end. With this created then, let's just hit the enter key, and we can see it should be key gen. So let's correct that, and that should give it a better go. Now when we go through and have a look within the bind directory, that we've created then a public key and a private key. Now let's just take a look inside the public key. And then if we go through and cat k, and then we can go through and just put then our key. So this is looking at the public key. We can see then that it's master-slave.example.com . So that becomes the key name that we reference within our configuration files. The secret that we use is the last field. So still working within our bind directory, we're going to go through and create a configuration file. So we're going to cat, and we're going to send the output of cat through to our configuration file. I'm just going to call transfer.conf. And we're going to continue reading into cat until we see the end word. I could use any word that I like there, but it just has to make sure that it's not going to appear within the configuration that I'm writing, because this signals to cat that we've reached the end of the file. So you see I get my continuation prompt, and we then type in key master, and that's going to be -slave. So we're putting in the name, .example.com . We open up then the properties or attributes of this key. I'm just spacing in, we don't need to, but it makes it easier to read, and we can put then our good old algorithm. Kind of like that, Al Gore. I wonder if his name was based around algorithm. It's a thought, isn't it? And then we can go through and put hmac.md5. Notice this is in lowercase, and don't forget the semicolons at the end of the line. A couple of spaces, and then our secret. So this is really the public key that we're using. And then I'm going to add in. Let me just select this. I can copy and paste, and then close off my quote, and then close off the semicolon. We've now finished, so I can close this out, and then we use the end word again to close this out. So that will have created then, if we look, the transfer.conf file. This only needs to be read by the bind user. So remember, we used the bind user for the name daemon on Ubuntu. So chown bind.bind for the transfer.conf and chmod 600 for transfer.conf. Similarly, we should do this for the keys. So when I look in the directory now, when I do an ls-l, we'll run the long listing. We can see then that we've got the public key and the private key. And now we've got the transfer.conf. And they're all then correctly owned by the bind user. Now, of course, there's no point just having a configuration. We've got to implement that configuration. So we're going to, I think I'll just edit the file directly. So if I go through to named.conf, remember what we're saying, pretty much this only has include lines. So I'm just going to then go to the end of the file, YY and P to paste, and go to the end of the file, and then just clear this out and add in the inclusion of our transfer.conf. That's nice and easy, isn't it? Close off our quotes, close off our semicolon. Now our access control list hasn't then mentioned the key yet. So of course we've now got to modify our access control list. So that was going to go through and in our vi and named.conf.local. And we can see that we've got the allow transfer, but the allow transfer is referencing the IP address of the host. We now want to make sure that we can only do this to those devices that are presenting the key. So we use then key master.slave.example.com. Now with that in place, let's just go through and run our named-checkconf. So that's okay. Remember, if it's a silent output, then that is good. I'm going to completely restart the service because there are some things that are going to be cached, such as the access control list, that I want to make sure that are reread. Otherwise, they'll just append to each other. So I'm just going to go through and use the service command to restart bind. So service bind 9 and then reload. So this has configured the master server, but now we've got to add the public key through to our CentOS server, the slave server.